Okay, we are recording now.
Okay.
So
happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. I don't know if this is ironic to anybody, but I don't know. It kind of seems funny to work deeply on St. Patrick's Day with the connotations of St. Patrick's Day.
Whenever she go to St. Patrick's Day, my twin's birthday is today, so it's more about that.
Oh, yeah, my husband's is tomorrow, so he always gets like a St. Patrick's Day themed birthday, sort of. I'm like, oh yeah, better remember. Okay, so jumping in, I thought this was kind of a cool design, I guess. I would like to see it like come to fruition.
Yeah, same. Like I was like, ooh, I think I like
And
this.
anybody know how to say the word?
Eudaimonia? I have no idea.
Eudaimonia machine.
Eudaimonia.
Eudaimonia. I'm a philosopher. I can make up words. That's why I was agreeing.
So I kind of looked this up a little bit and found this design by the guy in, didn't mean to do that. And so I thought it was kind of interesting. Yeah, I really would like to see it in person because it sounds really cool. So the gallery should be more the inspiration area. The salon would be more for collaboration. The library for investigation. The office space for superficial work. And the chamber for deep work. And then it seemed like you would just kind of go back and forth from deep work to your superficial work and to library if you need it. So it definitely seemed interesting, like an interesting concept to like physically go into a different room for each of those things. Just a reminder, so the gallery would kind of contain examples of deep work. And then the salon would contain access to high quality coffee. That's kind of funny. And perhaps a cafe or even a bar. So definitely be a collaborative social hub for sure. It also said that it's kind of a good idea because it meets people's different needs. This part wasn't in the book. This was on a webpage about this particular design. Where was that? It said different personalities can also benefit from the eudaimonia machine. For example, introverts may tend to stay in the quieter stages, while extroverts may spend time more in the interactive stages. And of course, any individual can work in any of the 5 stages, but the linear progression, in my opinion, better accommodates both personality and work style differences than a typical open office does. So it's kind of interesting to think about.
It reminded me of when I was in college and like we would have our study nights when we'd go to the library, you know? Mm-hmm. And like there were a lot of varying spaces kind of depending on what you needed, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, and sometimes you would need, you know, the office space or the salon, but when you needed the chambers, it was, you knew that you were in deep for it, right?
Yeah, when you really needed a crayon.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of thought of that too. Yeah, I'd like to see like what a designer would do with like the decor and how that would work.
Yeah.
So I like this picture because it kind of gave the layout at least.
Yeah, and I thought like when I was reading about it, I was like, man, if I had more time, like I would definitely dive into this and see what it really looks like, you know?
So there are a couple of quotes that I wanted to touch on sort of in this area before we dive into the different types of philosophies. The last one kind of jumps into one, but I didn't want to forget it. So I just typed them up so I didn't have to go hunting for them. But it was, the desire turned out to be the norm, not the exception. And so it said like half the time when they were tempted with like TV or internet browsing, they went to that desire instead of to what they should have been doing. And then you have a finite amount of willpower that becomes depleted as you use it. So we can't constantly be tempting ourselves because eventually we'll give in and just kind of burn out, I guess. Did anybody have any other books they liked before we really jump into the different types of death philosophy?
I'm gonna turn off my camera because it's kind of annoying. I want to see what I looked at.
So another one was like, you're a disciple of depth in a shallow world as a reader of this book.
Yeah, I was interested in like I just wondered, like, has this ever really come to fruition? Or is it more just like a concept?
Like that room type
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. It said that, yeah, he hasn't ever, it only exists in his mind or in his design right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if somebody did eventually kind of build something like that. And so
It's
yeah,
not a new-
that's like kind of looked.
It's not a new concept. I got my master's degree years ago, and I studied organizational and workplace learning and instructional technology.
Oh, interesting.
And we talked about this concept of different office designs and what works best depending on what the organization's needs are. And the one where it looks kind of like the salon, where you have like a central workspace that everybody collaborates in, and then the pods on the outside are facing outward, so that everybody has kind of their solitary space in those areas. But when it's time to work together, they turn around and join like the big table. And that seems to be like one of the most popular ones, even though we're still, in a lot of places, we're still in cube farms. So, but yeah, it's something that others have experimented with, but I think there's merit to it.
Yeah. And it seems like it might be a little tricky to find somebody when you need them too, when there's all those different areas. Okay, so jumping into the next part, so your depth philosophy, one of my favorite quotes that I'm feeling rings true. I'm like, I need to catch up. I want to post like Stephenson did. All of my time and attention are spoken for several times over. Please do not ask for them. Just let me focus. I kind of am feeling that a little bit right now, especially towards the end of the quarter.
I really like the other stuff. The motivation is limited. That's sometimes how I feel. I'm out of it for the week. I ran out. It's Thursday. I'm done. Friday.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, on Friday I'll be here, but
like my willpower is done.
My motivation to get ready for like our meeting on Friday, I'm always like, all right, like what's going on? Like, I don't know. The Friday me is definitely different than the Monday me, that's for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have lots of thoughts, by the way. I deep worked this chapter and have notes.
Great. Because I figured we'd kind of stay on this one a little bit. I had a busier background and I was like, that might hurt people's eyes. So since we're going to chit chat about on the slide more. Figured I'd tone it down. So I wanted to talk about what your depth philosophy is, and then his quote was, or warning, I guess, to us, was you must be careful to choose a philosophy that fits your specific circumstances, as a mismatch here can derail your deep work habit before it has a chance to solidify. So I guess the monastic one, that was where that last quote was from. That one's kind of like where you totally check out. And it seemed like it'd be, and he admits too, I really liked his honesty, like on how realistic a lot of these were. It's kind of nice to know, like, oh, we can actually pick one of these that works best for us and adjust to what we need and how our life goes.
Don't you think that you shift between some of these depending on what the demands of the day are?
Totally.
Yeah,
I know I
Completely.
do. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'm monastic. I'm like, I got a project, it's got to get finished. And so I'm turning off, putting my phone on silent for a while. And if somebody wants me, they're just going to have to wait. But other times, I think I shift back and forth so that I keep everybody happy.
Yeah, and especially if I'm working on my new classes, like that is when I go into do not bug me. I don't want to eat. I don't want to breathe. I just need to get this done. You know what I mean? So that's when we have freezer meals.
And that's why it's hard to hear from your counselors right now because we're scheduling.
Oh man.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, and you have to. Yeah, so it's kind of like what Kim was saying. We have about 6 different screens open to try to figure out: are they passing the class? Are they, what do they need to graduate? Just all the different. What do they? What electives do they want? Which ones have they already taken? So if you stop what you're doing to answer an IM or an email or the phone, it then it takes you that much longer to get back into that groove, right? So kind of that's right where we are at the moment. So yeah, and I totally identify with you, Kim, what you were saying. It just kind of depends on the day and the tasks at hand. Sorry, I'm late, by the way.
Working on one of your 6 screens, Karen?
Yeah, I was gonna say you had to finish the one you were on so that you can take a break and step away.
Yeah, it actually, I wish it wasn't that. We had a potluck here at the office, so we were kind of cleaning up, and it was really good. Everybody brought some yummy Irish food, so it was really very good.
That's awesome.
I know, I'm like jealous.
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone want to talk before I go? Sorry.
Go ahead. I was thinking like we could break each one up and have you guys describe each, like, kind of give summary of each one, so I'm not talking too much.
So I'm thinking though, can I just throw a monkey wrench in all of this that I was
Sure.
having, and it was just scratching at my brain while I was reading this? Why? It was the big question. Is the why? There's all these practices, these monastics. There's this build. It was really what it was is the Eurydia model of officing, and just that style of thinking always makes me feel like when I've learned about marketing and design to a degree, like how Vegas casinos are designed to get you trapped there.
Mm-hmm.
How offices it will make the office more work flow, this, that, and the other. So that way you feel, to me, it just felt like a trap. And like all the philosophies and the it just felt like, why? So I know we all have to work, but life isn't work to me. And I feel like reading this chapter, it really felt like the core of this was, and again, I didn't get to page 126 all the way. I had to skim towards the end, so maybe he resolves that later in the chapter, but it really just feels like this is so work-centric. Like, hey, I'm going to be like, I wanted to design a Google room, and then everyone's happy there because then it doesn't seem like it's tedious, time consuming work. And I know that's part of like the deeper work you go into it, but like that's just what it resonated with me. That, and then all the philosophies here, like when you look at them, like his people, he uses Jung, he uses Freud, he uses CEO, he uses, it's kind of circular logic of successful people. These people are successful and they do this and they are successful, but it's not like,
did they enjoy life?
yeah, like I can't go rent a cabin in the woods. Like, what about like the people that work at Target, or I mean, even like teachers? I mean, this is a little more applicable to us. But this just feels very. If you're an artist, awesome. If you're an author, awesome. If you're super wealthy and can do things, if you're a weirdo philosopher like me, cool. But like, it just seems like a journalist, great. But like for everyday life, it just felt like not realistic, I guess, or more of like a, hey, if you were able to do this, you would be better. But it just felt like there was something more, and I guess I want to see where he takes that, and maybe you've read it further, and he does take that to kind of a deeper level outside of just doing your best work to be a worker bee drone kind of thing.
Bryce, can I be devil's advocate for a minute?
I thought that's what I was doing, but yes, absolutely.
I'm going to devil your devil. How about that? He introduced the concept of this model doesn't work for jobs that are interrupted jobs. So somebody that works at Target, they're a constant interrupted job. It's not designed for them. It's designed for brain work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have to, and I don't know, maybe this is not the right term, but compartmentalize our lives to a point where we separate life and the things of life from the brain work that we do. So that's where I think we solidify that scheduling and that time and that space, so that when we are doing our brain work, then it takes us less time and we get more done, and it's a deeper experience. Because when I'm cooking dinner and folding laundry and all that, it's all interrupted, fragmented stuff. I'm not doing deep work. I'm doing superficial work, but it's okay because that's not my deep work time.
All right. I think I figured out my thing. It's the buy model. Because I feel like such a. Oh, sorry. I felt like there was on one page. I'm going to find out. I was like, this just sounds like me procrastinating. I'll say, and then it was like, I'm going to lock away and do deep work and not ignore all of my log entries that I have to do. And then yesterday for 2 hours, I just spent 2 hours doing log entries because I didn't want to do them all week. I felt like I had deeper work to do. But again, it felt like a fine line. Again, and maybe I'm just in a weird mood today when I was reading it. So if so, I apologize.
Yeah, when I first started into them, I was like, yeah, right, there's no way that would fit into my life. But as I got further into like the rhythmic and journalist, I think we actually probably jump back and forth between those two more so, because in the rhythmic, it's kind of you set a schedule. They also talk about like the chain method of like you do the one thing each day and you don't want to mark an X on the calendar and you just don't want to break the chain. So like exercising each day, or they did Jerry Seinfeld writing a joke each day. So it wasn't like a huge thing. That one was more like creating a habit essentially. Or like I know Clayton says like he likes to get up early and do his work first thing in the morning, and he's very rhythmic in that way. Get what he needs to done, and then he can move on to all of the interrupted tasks. And so there is a good example of that, and I know a lot of our teachers kind of use that rhythmic one to like get up, get their grading done, and then they can have the rest of their time be interrupted. And then for the journalist one, that's kind of like anytime, so they use the Isaacson method. Anytime he could find free time, he would switch into deep work mode and hammer away at his book. But it does take practice to be able to like jump in and do deep work. But that was actually what the author said. That's the one that he does most, is that journalist mode. And so he said what he actually does, like he can't just jump in moment to moment. He kind of needs a little more preparation. But I liked his method to map out when he'll work deeply each week at the beginning of the week, and then just kind of refine those decisions as needed at the beginning of each day. Because I know for me with 4 kids, stuff is constantly in flux. and then especially with like the little ones at home, so I don't even have like their full like school day to try to do work. And so I definitely have to like adjust and things. And so getting deep work in is, like last week I was saying, is really, really challenging. But I did like that journalist method, and it was nice to hear him say like, this is actually the one that I do, and this is how I do it. And it definitely seemed much more realistic. And I think the whole idea behind it is if you can focus and do your deep work, you can get a lot more done in that time, and then you have more free time to be interrupted or to go spend that time with your family and that kind of a thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I like that. And that's kind of like, I feel like that's kind of what I've done with planning my day in the block method, and I need to be better about that. I've been such a slacker. But I found that when I plan my day, like it goes much better instead of just flying by the seat of my pants, which is usually what I do. But I think
Same
that,
here.
yeah,
That's why I didn't want to skip out on this book study, because I'm like, I actually really need this.
yeah, exactly. But I think that actual planning, like, and planning my day and stuff, I found that it helps me a lot, So I need to be better about that. I really do.
I teach study skills right now, and I have both alt and regular sections. And there's a reason why we have our students go through a series of creating planners for themselves.
Right.
They do it daily, they do it weekly, they do a monthly, and they turn in a final product at the end where they, have them all compiled. And we're trying to teach them to do this better and to have a space where they can study and be uninterrupted. So there's a reason why it works and why I've done it like that for years, because it does work.
I taught that class for a little while, and I was like, oh, this is so good for me. And I was better at it when I taught the class, but yeah, I need to get back in it, and that will help me a lot, I think.
Well, and Tina, I think who mentioned you get up early and you exercise, you get up early and you do your work, and you have that rhythm going.
Right.
I have ran every morning for I don't know how many years, years. And it is such a part of who I am now that I don't ever stop. I don't ever not do it. And
you don't break the chain.
It's just my life, and everybody in my life knows, okay, Mom's going to be running for this, hour and a little bit. So we're not going to ask her to do anything for us until after she's done, because we know it won't happen anyway.
Right.
But I think as we create these habits with anything that we want to do in our life, anything we want to improve or anything that we want to incorporate, it just takes some time to get it going, and then we don't let ourselves fall off the wagon if we're dedicated.
Right. And you know what? My husband is the same way. Like, he has to exercise every morning. And, because of where we live, he's really not able to run every morning because it's freezing cold. But
and icy and dangerous.
Treadmill in the garage. That's where I do it in the winter.
Yeah. And we have an elliptical, and he uses that when he can't run. But it has become like he's a much better husband and a much happier person when he exercises in the mornings. So
I think I figured out while we're all talking what my difference and struggle is, and it's something I wrote on almost every page of this book. And I'm just taking this because for my own personal, journal journey and stuff is why, the big why, and that's for me. I'm not trying to say anything or make you. I don't have kids, so I have free time. I have a lot more extra time in my life because of that choice that what I have. And so for me, like the deep work and following these rules and I mean, I kind of am happy with life. That's where I'm going with is just enjoying my life for what my life is. So diving in and finding things wrong or things I need to improve upon or things I need to cut out and work harder on. I mean, I get like doing better and how this could be. And I've actually used the deep work ideas a lot lately, but that like I said, I've just come to a point where I was reading this chapter and I'm like, okay, I started doing this. And it's like, okay, I deep dived and I worked on my project. Okay, that's done. Now what? And that's where I'm at as a human. I need that bigger goal. And I think once I find it, all this will be much more applicable. And that's why I'm kind of struggling. This chapter kind of just threw me for a loop. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to like make this my therapy session, but kind of throwing it out there.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way, like with the monastic and the bimodal, because I'm like, there's no way I can just leave for a couple days and just buckle down, or like 2 months in the monastic and just cut myself off. And she's like, it's just not feasible.
But don't you think that one of the messages that Newport is trying to get across to us is that everybody kind of finds their way depending on what they need? I think he's giving us a lot of good ideas. It's this smorgasbord of ideas, and we're supposed to like do buffet style and pick up what we need, what we like, and maybe in the moment. Because I don't know, Bryce, maybe kids are part of your future, but let me tell you, once that happens, your life is never the same, and so you have to adjust. So anything could come into our life that says, okay, now we have to make a shift, and I have to pick up a different thing and set something else, to the side, at least for now. But if we look at it like, I'm going to pick the best parts of it, and I'm going to leave the rest, where it's at for now. And if I need it, it's there. I can go back, and I can change. I can put something else in my cart, leave something else behind. But I think it's important for us to know we're all in different places, in different spaces, and doing different things, even though we're all part of the same, overall big picture. But we need different things.
Totally. I like that a lot. And I guess, again, this is where I'm going with just being me right now and where my brain's at.
We need to give you a big project is what we need to do.
Is that... is that like, sorry, I had it and then I got distracted by the picture. Never mind. But yeah, no, totally. I totally get that. Switching ideas and making priorities is awesome.
Yeah, I know I used to be a lot better at doing deep work pre-kids. And then doing all the toddler year stuff, it was hard to really do deep work.
I feel like
that takes
away.
Trying to exit toddler years.
I feel like that takes away your brain. Honestly,
it really does. Well,
because it's like you're just thinking like, when does she need to eat next? When do we need to change the diaper?
Yeah. And, totally.
And how can I make sure that
my kids were horrible sleepers for the first 2 years, so we did 10 years of being up 3-4 times a night.
Right.
Yeah, just.
And how do I make sure that she doesn't kill herself? Because that's really what I'm dealing with my toddler right now.
Wait, for yourself? Do I need I have a hotline.
No. I'm she is a monkey and crawls all over and if I turn my back, she's on top of the kitchen table,
gotcha.
Dancing around.
It's been a weird week for me.
I had one of those. I had every single bookshelf, honestly, nailed or screwed to the wall. Just to make sure. And I think, like you guys are talking about the younger years, and it's like you have a little rest, but then once you have a couple years where you actually sleep, and then when they become teenagers, you aren't sleeping for different reasons, right? And you're also, you're like, I'm a pretty rhythmic person, so I used to get up and work out at 5:30 every morning. I'm like, I was like Clayton for a long time, where you guys were talking about that he likes to get out, and he's like that creature of habit, and I can't do it anymore because I'm not sleeping. And I don't know why I'm not sleeping. And, I try like not to be concerned about like, because my kids are doing great. Like I have no, I'm very fortunate, but I'm still not able to sleep. So it's like, I'm not getting up and exercising. So then if you don't get up and exercise, then I'm starting my day off, and then I'm getting through my whole work day and I haven't exercised yet, but then I'm tired. I don't want to exercise.
Right.
And then if I do it too late, then
It's
my body doesn't like night exercise because I get too awake, right? And then I can't
Right.
sleep again. So, but yet I don't sleep very well if I don't exercise. So I'm really struggling right now when I listen to you guys, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of with them, but in a different stage, right? I'm just gonna have to make myself get up in the morning.
It's a vicious cycle. It really is, Karen. Like,
Here's another thought, though. This is what I had
Which
today.
one
I keep waking up at 3 or 4 a.m. and then like making that choice: do I stay up or not? And today I chose not. Yesterday I chose to stay up, and today I was like, nope, I'm gonna sleep in. And I woke up at 8:30. But again, I work online and I'm home, and so instead of like, feeling guilty or bad like I would normally do, I like stretched out. I was like, man, that was nice. I got some extra sleep. And usually I would not feel that way. I'm usually pretty negative and hard on myself on that, but I'm like, I work online and we have that flexibility for a reason, and that's kind of cool. I'm not sure if you have that same flexibility because I know you're in the office more.
Yeah, I mean, I come in 2 to 3 times a week, and if necessary, on the days that I'm home, there's a little more flexibility. But I think, I was always it was schooled and hammered into me that like a really good sleep schedule is important, right? And that's what I did for my kids too. And then I started, when I was getting my master's degree, I really started reading about that and how sleep can really, and a regular sleep schedule can affect your metabolism and just so many things, right? So that always worked for me in my life. And right now I'm just a mess, and I feel it. Like I look at myself too. I look tired, So I gotta figure this out, and maybe it's kind of reevaluating something, right? I'm not and so reading this chapter, I think it just forces you to sort of reflect, right? So we're all trying to figure out where are we, but
what will work best for me.
Yeah, and I hope that like that's where I'm coming out of. Is like I just this really made me think about a lot of things, and like obviously I think I had like a eureka moment, and so someone's gonna throw a project at me or something else. But clearly I need a goal, and that's awesome. So I think this is a fun and great chapter because of that too. Because we like
you a marathon, or
we all grabbed something out of this. That was cool. Do our thing on time for our fitness program.
Right, there we go.
I'm gonna write that down actually.
We're probably, I bet that notice is coming soon.
Yeah. All right.
So I guess we'll move on from that. So this is something that I know we probably all tell our students. Just kind of those headliners to figure out where you're going to work and for how long and how you'll work once you start, like set little goals, so that you're trying to get a lesson done in an hour or whatever. Or don't stop working until you get your lessons done for that day, but make sure you take breaks. How you'll encourage yourself with like, make sure you have snacks or go for a walk or get up and move around, take a break from looking at the computer. So this little section, I was like, yep, this is kind of like our attendance conferences.
Seriously.
But I did like this one quote, I guess. It said, great creative minds think like artists, but work like accountants. So it's not just, I'll just go about my time and something will hit me and then I'll do my work. So they kind of keep at it, and then as they're working, kind of their ideas come.
I had my first really like negative attendance conference this week. And this kid I was like, so what are your goals? And he's like, to do better in my music. And I was like, okay, what about school? And he's like, I don't want to graduate from high school. I was like, oh, cool. That's awesome. It was great. And it went downhill from there. It was great.
Yeah. It can be hard because, there are some careers now where they can do pretty well being an influencer or a gamer.
Yeah, but I don't recommend.
Maybe on the rare case, and so you're like,
I had a student drop out on me my first year to be a DJ. She was 16 and her mom fully supported her.
Sweet.
Not sure where she went. Yeah. So.
And that's things like when we grew up, those things weren't options. Like you really needed to have like a solid.
Well, I still think that being a musician is not the most solid option.
Right. And so that was like, oh, I'm gonna go play in the NFL or NBA or whatever, like when we were kids, where it was a little far-fetched, you're not sure, you could get injured, so have a backup plan.
There's also a belief in theory, I'm 11 years older than my youngest brother. He's 21. He just graduated last year, summa cum laude, whoop. But he went about college a whole different way than me because he saw me get into student loan debt, struggle, be in debt, struggle to find a job because I graduated in 09, right when there was no jobs to be had. So I know. Yeah, and I know that's kind of like a common story. So the younger generation seeing that like now college and all that debt isn't as guaranteed. Yeah, and so now they're like, well, it almost seems like there's an equal risk in both. Sadly, I don't like that. I don't like that reality at all. But it's not a reality. So
and now some of those, like the lower paying jobs or the jobs that don't require like any education are paying a lot more too. So it's like, well, maybe I should just jump in the workforce and I can still start at $15 an hour. And I mean, it's just their pay is inching closer to people that have a college degree. It feels like a little bit these last few years.
It doesn't grow though. That's the problem. I think we need to
see
the long-term effect. They see right now $15 an hour sounds awesome for somebody that's 17, but when you're 30, it's not that great.
But that's the same thing that can be said with all construction and working jobs and things like that, which is a traditional thing too. I mean, I knew people that went into plumbing that had much less education than me that made
they make a
40 times what I made, in a year.
Yeah, so they start out as an apprentice. Mm-hmm. And then they move up, so they're making progress. They're training. They have to go through so many hours of classes and pass exams. So they're doing some, actual schoolwork, even though it looks different than our academic work. But they're moving up. But
I mean, yes and no. For the plumber example, I work with I know a lot of subcontractors out here in Idaho. My wife handles them, and so I get to hear a lot about it. And some of them don't even know how to do their own math. And ask my wife to do it for them. They're like, so I know there's this need out here too for quality workers over that too, even educated quality.
Yeah. Well, Bryce, what I'm saying though is that the contractor that starts out as the apprentice and moves up, he eventually owns his own company, probably. But then there's the others that are just content to do the manual labor piece and not to improve what they're doing. So it's really dependent on drive and passion and dedication. But I don't think it's a bad thing for a kid to say, I don't want to go to college, but I want to talk to me because I'm going to give them another idea maybe, or ask them what their other ideas are. Because if it's, I'm going to go make it in the NFL, it's time for a reality check and have a plan B.
It's interesting. That whole thing is I wonder in Idaho how that's going to be in 10 to 20 years, because we're in California, you could be very driven and very hardworking and not be able to open your. I mean, it's a lot harder to do things out there in terms of opening your own business and things like that. So
Well,
I do have a different background in that, but that's
I don't
awesome.
think they're much different than they are here, even though we're kind of trending the other direction. We're not nearly where California is as far as.
And again, that comes with sometimes overpopulation is a lot of it. And not to get political, because I don't like politics, but like when you have more people, because I teach econ, so when you have more people, you have more competition, for fewer jobs. So, which is also a good thing because, like I said, I get to hear about an idiot so-and-so contractor and all the time.
Yeah, that area is still bad right now.
All the time. There's so many contractors and people out there that are making a lot of money because the market's good, but they're doing a horrible job. So I have shortage. Yeah, so I have like developers, and I know developers and the higher ups that are really like excited for more qualified people to come out here and to kind of be in that competition so that they can get quality workers. There's a lot of that too. And that, again, it's just kind of the whole economic.
Right.
And that's all we're talking about. But
when the whole like housing crisis was like at its peak, you know, like we talked to like a construction company, and they said if we could get people to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we would take it. You know, but then the other thing, you know, like you say, is quality work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which is a lot harder to find.
Yeah, and then you have like the bigger companies building cheaper housing but giving more contracts out, and then those are actually subs are upcharging the smaller companies. So the smaller companies are actually going out of business because of the bigger companies giving the contract. It's a whole thing. It's very interesting, though. And as an econ teacher, I love watching it. As a non-homeowner, I hate watching it. But there's also a lot of the behind the scenes. Boise doesn't want to approve any more housing, or like it's really hard to get housing and land and development approved. Still easier than Cali, but still.
I think if we go back to like the whole thing you guys were when we were talking about like kids who are. You know, the grad, whether or not they're interested. Tina, I think you started it with, you know, you had a kid who wasn't interested in graduating, right? You know, it also has to do with expectations too. Like if you're not raised in a family where, you know, you're have a parent or a friend or a neighbor or someone who has that expectation, and college is not on the docket for you, right? So unless you're like what Kim was talking about, extremely motivated and driven. So that's where we come in when we have a kid or a student who is just like, you know, I'm not really sure, what is my high school diploma going to do for me? And we could use it the same way. What is my college diploma degree going to do for me? And sometimes I always try to frame it about how it's, you know, hey, it's getting your college degree. Yes, you hopefully all that stuff you're talking about, right? In the end, in the long run, typically you're not in a salary position. You're in a more professional position. You have higher potential to, you know, be in a more higher paying job. But what often a college experience gives you is that college experience. It's the same thing that our students, like your student Tina, who's considering not, you know, graduating from high school. It's like I always, you know, send them to me or send them to that counselor, Tina. Let us know because
I did. I let Crystal know.
Yeah, because we could say, hey, you know, let's talk about this. And also it's about when you're not feeling, like we all know, like me, I'm not wanting to get up in the morning to work out, right? But this is a totally different kind of issue, but it's the same idea where when I push through that and when I have success and when I'm feeling better, that's what your high school diploma is about. That's what your college degree is about too. It's just that knowing that you started something and then you finished it. Yeah.
Knowing that you have stick-to-itiveness, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, but, you know, and he's taking one class right now because he broke his leg and he can't take PE. So he's just in math. And
if I can full circle this real quick, maybe that's your angle. Hey, you know, maybe you don't love school in high school, but like you learn skills that you may not think you're learning. And that's my angle because I worked at Pathways and we had pretty much, I think I lost maybe 200 students in my 4 years there, like dropped out of high school completely, ages 14 to 22. Like I've had this conversation with so many kids and tried so many different angles, but a lot of them like that worked were like, hey, you can, anything you know and anything you learn, you use this. And like I was saying about the construction, like the people who know how to do geometry are going to get the contract next time than the people that don't. You know, sub point of view. Like that's who I'm going to hire next time.
Or can balance their budgets and
or hey, maybe you want to pay attention and maybe you don't think you know like algebra, but it's helping you develop critical thinking skills. And one day you're going to be in a situation as a rock star musician where you need those skills. Right. Like they transfer over, you just don't know it. I try to sell that. I don't know how well it works. But.
Yeah, no, I was just like, well, all right. Check you later, man. I don't know.
Like I said, I tried all that on the DJ. It didn't work, so
yeah.
Well, I think we take it so kind of personal sometimes when we have all the answers. We know what they need to do, but we can't do it for them.
Yeah.
And there's a point where you just have to like let go and say, I have done what I could. I'm going to still be here for you. I'm going to reach out, but you have to make your choice. And I'm not responsible for your failure if you don't do the right thing.
Exactly. Like I can lead a horse to water, but I cannot make him drink, you know? Like that's just kind of how it goes, right?
So I think going back to what Karen was saying, anytime you have a kid, and I know you did, Tina, you referred him to Crystal, but anytime you have a kid that is like, college isn't for me, so why am I even trying to finish high school? I think that is a perfect time for any of the counseling team to have a conversation with the kid about, okay, so let's map out your future. If that's what you're saying, show me where you're headed. And if they can make a case for themselves, great, run with it. But usually they can't. Yeah. And it's the same thing when a kid says, I want to major in psychology. And I ask the question, so what are you going to do for work after you're done with your 4-year degree? And then they have a reality check and they're like, oh, well, I hadn't really thought that far. So I think it's more about thinking, beyond 6 months or a year. It's thinking 5-10 years down the road. And what does that look like? And kids are so in the moment, and more so than when
their brains are not developed to think that way at this point.
We have to kind of force them to it. Yeah, we got to force them. And it's that constant reiteration of it. And like Karen said, when kids aren't raised to think about these things or to, be college driven or college bound, but it's not a conversation that happens at home, where's it going to come from?
Right. Well, and I was just kind of blown away because he said that he broke his leg like over President's Day, and so he's like, so I can't do anything. Like I have to sit on the couch. And I was like,
perfect time to get caught up on your schoolwork.
Why don't you work on your math class? Because like if you pretty much have 24 hours a day, you could get it done by next week, And he's like, nah, I'd rather just sleep. I'm like,
oh man.
Well, I don't know. It was pretty disheartening for me. I was like, well, all right. And then later the same day, someone wrote a discussion post and quoted God. And I was like, wow, okay, there we go. I don't know. It was just kind of a weird day.
Yeah, I have run into that kind of mentality, though, because people don't set that example or have that expectation. Mm-hmm. And I only lasted in one of the schools 1 year. Their whole math department turned over in like 2 years. Because the principal's perspective was like, high school is just supposed to be fun because these kids are all going in the workforce when they're done. And so the class seemed like the senior class's grade point average were A's, but nobody was going to college and nobody was making it past their first year in college. And I got in trouble for having higher expectations and having the football players do like 5 math problems in 2 days for homework and that kind of thing. I was just like blown away.
Rough, Tamara. That's
so
really
I did
rough.
not last there very long.
I had a high school.
Crazy to have like a whole town because I was the only high school in that town.
That's weird.
Have that perspective and be okay with that.
I had a high
When you ever
school
decide to move there,
math.
will you warn us ahead of time, Tamara?
Yeah, I have warned people that I know are building there, and I'm like, you sure you want to have your kids go to that school? I mean, luckily the principal isn't there anymore, but
I had a high school math teacher who would just sit at the back of the class
several
all
of
day
the
and say,
teachers are like in jail and stuff.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
not
No,
a
I
good
had a
school.
math teacher in high school who would just sit in the back of the class and go, high school's not for everyone, kids. Some of you really don't need to be here. And I was like,
Yeah,
college.
the one math teacher that stayed skipped teaching kids interest. And I'm like, are you kidding? This was the most important lesson that these kids will need to know.
Yeah, no kidding.
They need to know how interest works for and against them.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
we just got through like half the book and called it good. So
Wow.
I don't know. Life's crazy. But anyway, we're there to help show them the way. So good job, everyone. I really love talking about like that sidetrack that we have because, or that like little offshoot. That's why I do Avid, because I really enjoy those conversations with those kids, trying to show them like different potential options and things like that. So we'll finish up with our grand gesture topic, and Tina will take over the rest after that. So this is kind of, I don't know if I could do, I guess we'll think about what our grand gestures could be. A lot of their examples involved spending a lot of money and really going back into like really confining yourself into like the bimodal for the monastic type of deep work. I don't know if you guys had like a favorite example from that. So they gave J.K. Rowling was struggling finishing up. Her kids were distracting her and stuff, and so she paid $1,000 a night or a day or whatever to go work at a hotel, and it was worth it to her because she got it done. But the line that it ends with, it says, sometimes to go deep, you must first go big. So to make like that really big commitment. And so some examples that my husband thought of are, well, if you really want to get started with exercising, maybe commit to like a gym membership that might be really expensive. And so you kind of guilt yourself into going. Or a piece of exercise equipment for your home or something like that. Or even like actually getting your office set up. So like we're still trying to get our office built. For some reason, that's the last thing done, of course. So I'm like, oh, maybe, I guess that's probably my grand gesture to do deep work, is having an actual like office space instead of a couch with my laptop on my lap so I can keep an eye on my kids, kind of a thing. So for me, that would probably be my grand gesture option.
I would agree. Sorry, this is Gail. I've just been listening to you guys the whole time and just soaking it all in. I just was like, So I thought I should say something. And actually, this one hit me too because I thought I'm one of those people that I got so much going on all the time that, doing the deep dive for like a long time doesn't work. But I find that if I make a personal investment, like a big personal investment or financial investment, then I'm all in. Like with the grand gesture, like if I was going to go somewhere or experience something or invest in something, that's the grand gesture that really invests me into the project. And so I'm trying to think of an example, like, like just going back to get your master's or taking a class where you're, like if you're going to write a book, would be diving in and investing in a writing class or setting deadlines or those kinds of things where I have some accountability. To me, that would be a grand gesture because I feel like I have to do it now. And when I get close to a deadline, that's when I dive deep because I know I have to, and that's my grand gesture.
Same.
And so,
Same.
yeah.
That's the journalism work situation when
Yeah,
you
so
have those deadlines.
My way to do a grand gesture, I know that I won't like not follow through if I tell somebody I'm going to do something. So I verbalize it and I tell them I am going to have this done by, whatever date. And then I've given myself
That's
a
good
deadline.
plan.
And that for me is like my end all. Like
Committing to somebody
make
else.
just make yourself.
That's not easy to do.
I could run 8 miles in the morning, but get all my contacts logged. Come on.
I hear you. Oh man.
But one that I thought was a little crazy was the guy that could focus on a flight. That one was probably the most interesting grand gesture.
Yeah, I thought that too. Like he spent like $400 to get to Japan.
4,000. Yeah.
Or was it 4,000?
He said it was worth every penny.
I'm so
30
bad.
hours.
I'm so bad with zeros.
Got his project done.
Yeah, I was like, wow, like that'll do it, I guess. If you have Wi-Fi on the whole flight, that's cool.
In coach, I don't think it's possible, but in first class, you probably could do that if you plug your earbuds in and just get in the zone.
Oh yeah, it was business class. I know. I was thinking that. I'm like, I was like, he must have upgraded and gotten.
There's not enough leg room.
Yeah, so it does say business class.
But I think there's a concept in that maybe we can pull out. He couldn't go anywhere else. He was stuck where he was, and it was a long period of time. And he probably only had a limited amount of distracting things with him, and so he set himself up for success. And if we can do that similar thing without spending $4,000 on a flight, then gosh, we'd be so far ahead.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably get into that aspect of it a little bit more in the other half of this section. But yeah, definitely minimizing those distractions, and kind of touched on that in the beginning that it was going to get there. So, well, thank you guys so much. This was kind of my last slide, unless you guys have a quote that we didn't touch on or something.
I think that sounds great. And I think, and the next time that we meet is like in forever.
Yeah.
Because we're not
Because
done.
then it's our break, huh? So it'd be like 3 weeks away.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say thanks everyone for just letting me be me. I always appreciate it, and I really
We
do.
appreciate your comments. It's kind of cathartic, I
thanks
think,
letting
for
me
all of
push
us to
back on
come.
some of that, Bryce. I appreciate the banter.
That was
Yeah.
awesome. I just wanted to make sure because I know I'm a little much sometimes, but I always appreciate you all for just being amazing human beings. So thanks for letting me be a part of the book study and running it there.
Good luck finishing your classes, everyone, and enjoy maybe a little break.
Stuff in like crazy.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Awesome, but it's like busy.
It's
I
very-
know. I'm kind of anxious to like jump and go grade. Got my deep work getting this ready this morning.
I
Did a good job.
Yeah, I need to get
Did a
ready.
good job, you guys.
Yeah, this is awesome. I loved it.
And happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yay!
All right.
I've
bye.
been so pathetic with St.
Yeah,
Patrick's
guys.
Day. Okay, see you guys. Bye-bye.